Is Rolex shifting their target market? I think that's the big question. Rolex has moved away from the idea of making a timepiece for the enthusiast and collector segment. I can't wait to find out that some aliens came down and abducted, Rolex executives and then implanted stuff in their brain.
Yeah.
Whatever wild stuff you can come up with, I want to hear it. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Rolex price increase, the leaked price increase. I don't think it's absolutely confirmed yet, but speculative, but we're pretty sure that this is what it's going to look like for 2025. And really what we want to do is get into what that looks like for us as consumers, and then why is Rolex doing this? Right. So we'll just have some discussion around why we think Rolex might be increasing their prices at certain percentages. It's kind of interesting when you look at their lines and what it's going to be broken down by lines, and then specifically the Daytona. And that is a big shocker, I think, for most people. So we'll dive into all of that. And really, this discussion today, we want the community involved in this. So please comment what your thoughts are around this price increase from anything. You love it. You can't wait to spend more money buying a Rolex at retail, all the way down to
that deterred me from ever wanting a Rolex. It turned me off.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, do you believe that there's some weird stuff that Rolex is doing at headquarters, or do you think this is just the natural progression? So anything from one view to the other and everything in between, please comment.
I want all the bizarre stuff. So
me too. Yeah. Before we dive into that, we'll do a quick wrist check. So today I'm wearing my Vacheron 2215, and I love this piece. It's been featured on the channel before, so go check that out. State of the Watch collection, I talk about it. But really, it's an amazing piece of history on my wrist. It's really the second steel integrated sports bracelet to have ever been made, even before the Nautilus. So it came after the Royal Oak. And it's cool because you can see Vacheron trying to figure out what they were going to do, how they were going to integrate a bracelet. They made a beautiful design, but everything's not perfect. The crown is very small on it. It is hard to set. It is hard to wind. The integrated bracelet doesn't quite come together in a way that is the most comfortable, but they did a good job. So it's not a bad job by any means, but you can see that they were trying to figure it out. And that's what I love about this piece, is that it's this really short piece of history. They only made this for about 2 years, although I did get archives back on my piece. And shockingly, this piece was made in 19... Theoretically, it could be the last piece that was ever made. Probably wasn't, but I like to think that in my head, like, hey man, maybe this maybe this was the last one they ever produced. But that's what I'm sporting today. Love it. Got the baguette diamonds and just gives a nice little pop and some elegance to the piece.
Yeah.
What are you sporting?
My favorite, probably one of my favorite pieces. If you ever, if I ever
die,
I was going to say, not to be morbid, if you pass away,
morbid at all.
I will tell my sister, which is his wife, that is your cheapest watch in your collection, and piece of shit, and it's worth about $1,500. No,
right?
Yeah, it's a really nice piece. I love that. That was a great acquisition.
I will say in front of the world that if I die, that this piece is yours,
dude. Nice, man.
Right there.
Hey, I've got some poison at the house.
Hollis gets the rest of them though.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I would rather have you alive than the watch, but it was a nice gesture.
Appreciate that.
I'm wearing Felix's favorite way to say this is alpinist, but it's an alpinist. I threw it on a brown NATO. I thought it, kind of rolled well with the cream tone dial, and it's a nice piece. So nothing overly exciting. Doesn't have a ton of fancy history or anything, but I like it, and
It's a great piece.
yeah, it's
looks
fun.
great.
It's balanced. I love the size on it. I have a lot of sports watches that I feel like are teetering 2 millimeter over where they should be.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I really appreciate about this watch is it's very, very well balanced.
The proportions.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
It's so funny how trends go one way and then come back and then go another direction. And I really like where trends are right now with pieces being better proportioned in that 38 to 40 millimeter size. It's just the sweet spot, really.
Yeah.
So why are we here? We're here to talk about Rolex, right? All right. So I think they've got an annual price increase, which is not out of the norm for Rolex, right?
Yeah.
Just about every year they come out with a price increase.
And so do a lot of companies, to be fair. I wouldn't say every year, but there's a lot of folks that have a consistent price increase to set with the inflation.
With inflation.
Yeah.
Generally, right?
But they're normally modest, and they actually go with inflation. And so we'll lead with that as we talk about where Rolex has decided that their value's at.
So we'll talk about what we have, the information that we have. I scoured the internet and tried to put together or populate a list of what we think we know. Again, this is leaked information, but most people believe that it's very accurate. So when we look at steel and platinum models, we're looking at a 1% increase. White gold two-tone is going to be a 2% increase. Yellow gold two-tone and titanium is a 5% increase. Full gold models, 7% increase. Okay, so we're looking between a 1 and 7% increase.
Yep.
And that would be considered maybe a little high compared to past increases, but still within the norm. Where it gets interesting is Daytona's. Platinum will increase 1%, stainless steel 3%, two-tone will increase 6%, and gold models will increase 14%.
That's where I have an issue. So, when we go back to the beginning, the 1% I would say is normal. Even some of the gold that when you look at commodities, gold has gone up 6-7%. Still feels a little normal. It still feels on the high normal side. But when you get to 14, that's what I want to talk about and spend some time on that.
Right. And we'll dive into that once we go through some of these numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. To put in perspective, between 1 and 7% for most models, let's look at 2020 to 2024. So 2020 was a 3 to 4% increase. 21 was a 3 to 5% increase. So pretty in line with what we've been talking about.
Yep.
22 was a large increase, 3 to 10. 24 came back to a more average 4 to 6. And now we're looking at 1 to 7, right? So most of that is in line except for the Daytona. I want to run through. Now, I put together this list. I scoured, trying to populate from different places and put together something that was cohesive. Depending on where you buy a Rolex, I believe regionally, the price can vary slightly retail. So if I'm off by $50 or $100 or $200 on retail price, you can correct me in the comments. I'm fine with that. But just understand this is really more to understand where pricing is going with these estimated increases. So we're looking at a Datejust 41, smooth bezel, retail at $8,050. It is estimated that we'll have a $100 increase. So $8,150.
Fair.
That sounds pretty reasonable, pretty normal.
Yep.
The Datejust 41 oyster bracelet fluted bezel, $10,350, increasing by $200 to $10,550.
That's fair on demand.
1.9% increase or so. We'll skip down to the Submariner date, $10,250, estimated to go to $10,400, $150 increase, about a 1%, right? So all of that seems 1.4%. I'm sorry. All of that seems pretty normal. But when you start getting into like a solid yellow gold Submariner, retail $40,600, estimated to go to $43,500. That's almost a $3,000 increase, 2,900 at 7.14% estimated. Now, we'll get into a couple more of these, but the issue is people are not buying yellow gold Submariners at retail. I mean, of course, some people are, but that is not a hot watch, right? And we're looking at 43,500 in 2025.
Especially when you look at the gap, you know, just from what is it? It's a $30,000 watch on the gray,
35 or so, something like that.
So 10K more.
Yeah.
Jeez.
White gold Smurf, 43,700 today, estimated to go to 46,600. Another watch that is not moving.
Yeah.
Now, a two-tone model. This says this was unspecified. A two-tone, 16,150, estimated to go to $17,850 markup, or about 5.2%. Okay, so those, 16,150 to 17, I can see that, although that's a little more than I would like to see. But let's get to Daytonas. Daytona Yellow Gold Oyster Flex, 31,900, estimated to go to 36,400. That's a $4,500 increase, or a 14% markup. A Daytona Rose Gold bracelet, 44,300, up to $50,500, or a $6,200 increase.
That stings.
14%.
That stings.
Yellow.
That's on bracelet, right? You said?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a rose gold. A yellow gold bracelet, 41,800, estimated to go to 47,000, a $5,200 increase, or a 12.4%. Bro, I mean, a yellow gold Daytona full bracelet, not flying off the shelf. And then the last one that's on here, Sky Dweller, any precious metal Oyster Flex, 42,750, estimated to go to 45,800, a $3,050 increase, or about 7%. All right, so that's what we're looking at. That's a quick snapshot. What are the factors that are driving this increase? Besides inflation.
Yeah, we'll say, so there's the increase in commodities and precious metals. We've seen gold go up. That's fair. I don't think it's up that much, though. And I haven't checked. I mean, we could.
I mean, gold is definitely up in 24. I think recently it's up.
There's been a run on it, throughout COVID. Over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been gold has naturally gone up, and we haven't seen the same spike. That would be my point.
Yeah,
I didn't see this tremendous spike unless their analysts are projecting that gold is going to go through the roof.
Well, here's a point. Why is gold on the other line 7%, but gold on a Daytona 14%?
Yeah, I mean,
so if you were going to make the argument that it's because of gold, okay, but why is it double
do it across
on
the
a
board.
Daytona?
Yeah,
compared to the regular line.
I think people have gone absolutely ham on the Daytona, and their marketing sees that. They're like, okay, we can get this from it because, and I don't know the statistics behind. I would love to talk to somebody that owns an AD about, what sits in the safe and what doesn't, but I don't see that many gold Daytonas.
I pulled some analysis for 2024 for Rolex sales. Of course, Rolex does not publish what their numbers are, but you can make good assumptions and come up with some pretty good numbers. And basically what it comes down to is it's suggested that Rolex sales have fallen between 10 to 15% in 2024.
Okay.
And that they've got a bunch of supply. So with that information, why in the world would they be so aggressive on their price increase? Is it because they feel like they need to fund some of the, production facilities that they're building?
Yep.
They are increasing production.
Yeah.
Is that the reason? Are they going to reallocate? So they've gone up 14% on a yellow gold Daytona that isn't flying off the shelves. Are they going to reallocate? Are they going to make less of those now? And so that's why they've increased the price. so that they can make more of some other models that are really hot right now?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but when I try to figure out why would they be so aggressive?
Doesn't it still balance out though? You would think that like it's a quantity or quality or quantity or price piece. So if it's to balance the cost, let's make less, let's charge more, because let's face it, that clientele, you can just charge more for. Like, you have the money to buy a $45,000 watch. You've got the money to buy a $50K watch. We're just going to charge it. And that could be a good theory that we're going to increase the Datejust, or we're going to increase the Submariner. I don't know why. I mean, there's tons of those already. It honestly has me perplexed just because of the categories of going through it. And you said this earlier about why has gold, if it's gold, why didn't it go up across the board?
Yeah, I'm perplexed. Here's the reason I'm perplexed. I'm perplexed because sales are down. Sales are down for the industry, and they're certainly down for Rolex. And with sales being down, what do you generally see from any company when sales are down?
They run sales. They
reduce their price so that they can try to increase their sales.
Yeah.
Rolex is doing the complete opposite. So I am confused. The only thing that I can think of is they're trying to still claw back some of the money that is on the secondary, but it doesn't make sense because a lot of the precious metal Rolexes are the ones that are suffering on the secondary.
Yeah.
They're generally
selling under.
They're generally the ones that are selling under, depending.
Yep.
It's the steel that is most likely going to go for over.
Right.
So I'm baffled. But what about the impact? What's the market impact for this price increase, right? Is Rolex shifting their target market? I think that's the big question. So as a watch collector enthusiast, there are so many other watches out there besides a Rolex. Right? But if you're just a guy that wants a nice watch and you want to have the cachet, then a Rolex is what you look at. Right? I mean, I think most people just accept that and know that that's where the industry has gone.
Yeah, it's a household name. It's fine.
It's a brand.
Yep.
Right? So are they trying to shift their target market away from actual collectors and enthusiasts to more of the person that just wants the brand on their wrist?
Yeah, it's almost like more of a fashion play than like, do you want a collector? I would think they would say yes. But that's a really good point. Are we trying to turn off collectors so much so that we're picking up?
Yeah, and maybe not turn them off, but if you already know that that is not your largest target market, then maybe you're making decisions to pivot off of that target market and onto the luxury side is my point.
Yeah.
So I think Rolex was aspirational forever. And people, your standard middle class person aspired to one day have a Rolex or a nice watch, but a Rolex a lot of times. But it was still attainable. You could save up, squirrel away a little bit of money and go buy a Rolex. Right. You could retire and then go get that Rolex that you wanted to commemorate and celebrate your retirement. But at the prices that Rolex is at today, it feels less attainable for your standard person. And it feels more like a luxury brand. While I'm perplexed by the percentages and increase, especially precious metal Daytonas, I still think that what Rolex is doing is they're trying to position themselves as the luxury watch, as the luxury brand, I should say.
And maybe they're fighting for like secret warfare for that title. They've always been known as, when somebody looks at a shoe, it's the Nike comes to mind.
Right.
And they see that there's competitors that are coming up in the game making precious metal pieces, making, exhibition backs and sexy internals and all this stuff and playing in their sandbox. And they're like, hey, pretty soon it's going to be Patek. And, if people are already spending X, they can get an entry-level Patek for clothes. They're not going to get a $10,000 Patek, but, if you're spending $20,000, $30,000, you can get a Patek for that. Oh, you've got a Rolex on your wrist. Maybe that is the play. And they're catering to the audience that will help them keep that.
Yeah. Who is that audience?
I think it's the high end of middle class America that has to save for that watch, that they just don't go get it when they want to. And there's a lot of those folks. There's a lot more of those folks than the watch collector out there that.
Yes.
So they're looking at the masses, like, where can I get more sales from right now? And that's the person they get more sales from. The guy that retired, that's worked his whole life. There's guys that do that and they go buy themselves a Corvette or whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more of those than guys that are collectors that are going to continue to buy their watch over and over again.
Right.
Not a collector that wants one of every, one of their product lines.
I strongly believe that is what Rolex is positioning themselves as. They're positioning themselves as a luxury brand, a luxury brand, not just a watch, but a luxury brand. And I think that you've seen some acquisitions here in the last couple of years that are pointing toward that. And when you have a luxury brand, you don't care about horology, you don't care about heritage, you don't care about the craftsmanship, because the only thing that matters is the brand, the recognition,
the desire for
and
it,
the cachet.
Yeah.
And your desire to have that, to possess that cachet,
yeah, I will save
overrides everything.
Yeah.
If it's $4,000 more this year, so be it.
Yep.
My desire for that is so strong that I'm willing to overlook that, because I'm not looking at another brand. I'm not looking at a Patek. I'm not looking at AP. Hell, I'm not looking at Omega. I'm not looking at Tag. I'm not looking at those other brands.
Yeah.
That's that person, $6,000 or $7,000 with Omega is a waste of money. I'd much rather go plop 11,000 on Rolex.
Yeah. Regardless if it's a better watch or not.
Regardless.
It's just
I want that brand and I want that name. So, as we're talking about this, maybe I'm working out what Rolex is doing, and they're positioning themselves as a luxury brand, not an aspirational watch, right? Not the history, heritage, craftsmanship, the accuracy of time, the robustness of the watch. I think they're moving away from all of that marketing that they've had for the last 100 years. And I think that they are moving into, we are a luxury brand, period.
Yeah, a Louis Vuitton of watches.
Right.
You watch
women go
with
crazy over Louis.
Yeah.
They could care less if it was hand stitched. They don't care where the leather was sourced. They don't care the difference between this leather and that leather and what's embossed and what's not. They don't care. They don't care about the quality of the zipper.
It has an LV on the outside of it.
Right. They want that brand. Now, I think, where does that leave the secondary market? Where does it leave the secondary market? It's complicated.
Yeah, there's so many different angles that you can look at it. It could lift it, it could lower it. I think that from a sure numbers perspective, when we look at the Daytona, that could help prop the secondary. Well, it's now 50,000, and we were selling them at 44, 42 on the secondary. I can bump it up a little bit because it's still not 50K plus tax. I could see that. I could also see it loosening up with Submariners and stainless steels, and because they're, if their sales are down and there wasn't a big price bump, people are like, oh, there's not a big price bump. It may get flooded with them, and I can pick up more. for less.
Yeah, there's so many unknowns besides this price increase. It's like, how are they going to allocate production on certain watches? Again, I do think that they're probably going to lower production on those ones that have been increased by 14%, maybe even lower production on the ones that are 7%. They're standard all gold models. And I believe that with that softer increase on steel and two-tone, that they may try to push production, allocate more production that way. But again, when you're looking at watches that are not selling even today and you've got that type of price increase, it gets convoluted because now people are not buying those at retail as much, which then means that they're not being put on the secondary, right? So then demand on the secondary could actually go up.
Right.
So do they, instead of there being say a $5,000 or $6,000 gap between secondary price, meaning it's cheaper on the secondary than it is retail, do those become closer now?
Yeah. And then with them having their own secondary, like piece now, that may be what that may be the play too.
They're certified pre-owned.
Yeah. How do we even out? Because right now, honestly, when you look at their certified pre-owned, they're almost at cost. And really the only thing that to a buyer that would be advantageous is I can't get this. I've sit on wait list for 3 years.
Yeah.
I'll buy that one that's 3 years old. It's certified. It's just as good. That may be a play that they're doing. My hope for Rolex is that they're not getting out of the business of making watches for that are, we'll say good quality craftsmanship, good quality crafted watches. I wouldn't say they're the best. They're still good. And focusing on just pushing volume and numbers and becoming LV. That would suck. That would suck for them. I mean, that'd suck for me because there's tons of other brands out there. But
yeah, well, it's not like Rolex is hurting. I did read an article where they estimate that Rolex's revenue will be more than Apple this year. So it's not like Rolex is hurting, but it does go to the point. They're not handcrafted; they're machine made. They have the largest production of any watch in the world, so that they're just churned out. So when you think about what they've done over the last decade, the amount of volume that they've increased, I think they've doubled probably in the last 10 years or so, and I think the writing was on the wall a decade ago about them moving in this direction. It's just now we're actually starting to put the pieces together, and now we're actually starting to see that Rolex has moved away from the idea of making a timepiece for the enthusiast and collector segment.
Well, they lose, and it's okay. I would still be a buyer with Rolex. They lose special. I think they've worked really hard to lose special already, to me. I'm still a buyer the way I'm still a buyer. I bought an LV bag when we were in New York. I like the bag. It looks good. It's nice.
The brand.
It's
I like
good.
the bag.
It's good quality. I wouldn't say it's the best in the world. I'd probably be the same way with Rolex. But for the enthusiast, it stings a little.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. That is really all that we have to discuss as far as this Rolex price increase, because there's still some unknowns. But what we want is to hear from you. How do you think this is going to affect Rolex sales in 2025? Do you think this is a fair increase? Do you think they have gone way overboard? What do you think the secondary is going to do? How are they going to respond with an increase at retail from Rolex? These are all the things that we want to hear. So please make sure to comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. Mike and I will be happy to respond to them.
Yeah.
It's a great way to communicate, and it's a great way to have everybody kind of throw out their ideas, because I am very curious, honestly.
Yeah, me too. I don't think anybody really has the answer, but we bounce enough around, we may figure it out.
Yeah,
together.
that's right. Yeah. So until next time, we'll see you.